Coming up on the WAC podcast, it's WAC Vegas week. Jess Radford is kind of in studio if you watch it on YouTube, and she's filling in for Kendra Sheehan. We're going to talk about the big tournament coming up. A couple of spots still open on the men's and women's sides. We have a big deal to talk about in terms of radio, and there's a whole bunch of other things. There's national championships coming up, baseball conference play, swimming and diving awards, cats and dogs living together, all ahead on the WAC podcast. Welcome to the WAC podcast. Eric Danner and Jess Radford filling in this week, and it's WAC Vegas week. We're almost there, Jess. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum in the office, but it's the biggest week of the year. It's like the Super Bowl for the WAC.
Literally.
What are your thoughts as we're heading into WAC Vegas?
I have no thoughts because my mind is scrambled right now trying to figure out who is about to be, our last two teams in this tournament. So we're just going through a bunch of scenarios. All of our remaining teams are in tournament contention, so it's a lot going on. It's a lot of math, and I don't like math. So
there is some math involved. Let's start on the men's side. So we know 7 teams that are in. Grand Canyon clinched a share of the regular season title last night as Tarleton was upset by Utah Valley 63-60. Tarleton State had won 10 games in a row. They get beat by Utah Valley, who has now won 6 of 7. Todd Phillips is going to be Kendra's guest in our next segment. She recorded that earlier this week. Get this, Jess. Utah Valley wins that game at Wisdom Gym, one of the toughest places in the league to play. Did not make a single three-pointer last night.
not a single one, just all
deuces and free throws.
I think that's actually crazy, but a tremendous effort by them. They have actually been doing so well. I haven't really been too keyed in on the men's side because, of course, women just have a bunch of stuff going on. But Utah Valley, they've been doing really well. 6 of 7, that's good for them.
6 of 7. 15 new players on the team this year
New coach,
for Todd
right?
Phillips.
New head coach.
New coach. He was an assistant last year. Mark Madsen was their head coach, went to the University of California, and of course the former Los Angeles Laker and Lakers assistant, and one of our favorites here on the show, and Todd Phillips doing a great job here, especially the back half of the season. One spot now remains as Stephen F. Austin won against Southern Utah. They have now clinched a spot in WAC Vegas, so 7 teams in. The final spot will either be California Baptist or Utah Tech. So if Utah Tech loses, California Baptist is in, no matter what. Wasn't looking good for Utah Tech last night, Jess, because they're playing UTRGV. Vaqueros have lost a number of games in a row, have a number of injuries, and Utah Tech they're down double figures much of the game, come back at the end to win and basically rescue their chances for WAC Vegas.
A much needed win for them. And like you said, I think they just probably locked in that second half. It was like, we are trying to go to WAC Vegas. We're here. We're so close. We can't lose now. So we have to come back. And they did. And UCRGV has been having, a little struggle of a season, but they are still, they still continue to be, like in games. It's not like it's total blowout. So still good for UTRGV, but Utah Tech and CPU, we'll see. Saturday, it all comes down to the last final day.
Yeah, one of the players I noticed in last night's game for UTRGV as they were playing down several players is Roy Jones III, and he is the son of Roy Jones Jr., the famous boxer, the boxing champion, and he actually got the start last night. So they're going with some different lineups there, but yeah, Utah Tech comes out on top. Meanwhile, California Baptist was at UT Arlington. CBU was doing really well until about the middle of the season when Dominique Daniels Jr., their outstanding guard, went down with an injury. Since he's been out there, now 2-7, and they play Grand Canyon the final game. Of course, Grand Canyon right now the top team in the league. So, like I said, if Utah Tech loses to Stephen F. Austin, CBU is in. If Utah Tech wins and CBU loses to Grand Canyon, Utah Tech is in. So it comes down to the final games here, and that's what makes March fun. That's what makes basketball fun, and that's kind of why we do this, right?
March Madness has definitely arrived for sure, especially in the WAC. Not sure if any other conference is having these problems.
I'm sure everybody is. Actually, a lot of tournaments have already started too. If you've been watching, we're going to be at the Orleans Arena next week in Vegas, and the West Coast Conference is there. So we had pulled up some ESPN Plus games and kind of getting a reminder of what the arena looks like and the setup and all that good stuff. But women's basketball, as you mentioned, Jess, there's 6 teams that are in. California Baptist clinching a share of the conference title. And talk about a big game to end of the year. California Baptist playing against Grand Canyon could be a preview of the championship game.
Definitely. And it'll be at Grand Canyon. And as we all know, playing at Grand Canyon is very, very tough. So it'll be interesting to see how it'll play out. I'm monitoring tonight, so actually can't wait. I'm excited. But
Oh,
I
you
was
mean
gonna,
on Saturday?
oh, yes, Saturday.
It's
Sorry,
Friday.
mine.
All these days are running together. I hear you. So the 6 teams are clinched, but then 2 spots available. We got 1 game left for everybody, but there's still 5 teams alive for those 2 spots.
Yes, all 5 teams are alive. Definitely will. One thing for sure, one will be a little bit easier to decide than the other. So whoever wins this Seattle U Tarleton game on Saturday, that'll determine if, Seattle U wins, they're in. If Tarleton wins that game, then they're in. So that one, alleviates some pressure off of us just a little bit. But that's where it gets complicated, trying to figure out who is the last and final team after that. So it's a bunch of different scenarios, all depending on which team wins. And that's where things get a little bit complicated. We go into head-to-head scenarios or, seeding system scenarios. It all depends on, how the records fall after Saturday. So it'll be slightly different, a little difficult for that 8th spot. The 7th one, easy.
So that game will be in Seattle Tarleton at Seattle U. Winner gets a spot in the tournament no matter what. Pretty amazing, Jess. The Red Hawks, especially early in the year, kind of left for dead, and all of a sudden they've had a resurrection and may find themselves in WAC Vegas.
And I was telling you this before we started recording, like Seattle U has been blowing my mind. I think you are always like have in the back of your mind of, okay, like you're looking at the records, who's going to, get those tournament clinches throughout the season. Cause of course we put out once teams clinch for the tournament. So you have your eye on it. And, sometimes you're like, okay, these teams, you think about more, cause the winning teams, but for this team to have such a back half, just explosion that they have, it's like, shout out to Seattle U's. They have a new coach. They have a new team. They, I just think that they had to get the chemistry together. And boy, oh boy, have their chemistry have been coming together these past couple of weeks for Seattle U, especially after the upset over Abilene Christian last night. Big win for them and put them right in a perfect spot for tournament contention. And now they just have to beat Tarleton State tomorrow. But Tarleton has been doing really, really well underneath Bill Brock as well. That's another new head coach in the WAC. So those 2 teams, they did both have, like a rough start out of the season, but this back half of conference play, they've been doing really, really well.
Another big game that'll be happening on Saturday, Southern Utah hosting UTRGV. That's at 2 o'clock in Cedar City. The loser of that game is out. The winner of that game, we can't say like the Seattle U Tarleton game is in, but they put obviously if you don't win that game, you have no chance at being it.
Yes. And I think it's also insane as well. Like, if Southern Utah and UTRGV both won last night, then whoever would have won that game on Saturday would have been in. So it's just so funny when you look at all the scenarios and things that could happen, how it can really just change the landscape of what 2 teams will be in and what teams will, not get that chance to go to the tournament.
And a reminder to our fans that the bracket will be coming out on Sunday, even though the season ends on Saturday. Well, with our resume seating system, Ken Pomeroy is involved in that. We need to have the NCAA net rankings come out. We need to get the results of the teams that our schools have played. If they win or lose on their games, maybe that affects their net rankings. So there's a lot of math involved, as you said earlier, Jess. So that's why if people are wondering, hey, how come the bracket doesn't come out right away? We want to have that final resume seating system standings so before we do the bracket. So that'll be on Sunday. And again, we don't want to even put a real time on it because we're kind of at the will of the NCAA in terms of when their stuff comes out. But as soon as we can get it, we're going to do it. We're not just waiting around for it. But makes it exciting too, because then you have something to look forward to after the games on Saturday. Look forward to the seating on Sunday, and then Monday we got all conference coming out, all the big awards. Tuesday, you and I and the rest of the crew will be traveling to Vegas with the game starting on Wednesday. So it's going to be boom. It's going to be flying.
We are definitely taking off for sure.
Now, last week, you and I were in Far, Texas for the WAC Swimming and Diving Championships, and Kendra and I did the show from the pool last week, and that was obviously before we had the champions named. UNLV wins on the men's side, fourth time in a row. Northern Arizona. I meant to look this up. 11 in a row. It's got to be.
Is that the
Uh,
longest in
you wonder. I mean, there's been some great, dynasties in the WAC over the years in different sports. I'm wondering if it's the longest in any sport, right? 11.
Mhm.
I mean, and part of that is they're so good in, swimming and diving. Not everybody has diving. Um, Northern Arizona has a a great diving program. CBU also has a great diving program, as we saw some records fall on the platform and on the diving board. Mario Davalier uh, put on a show, maybe like unlike anything I've seen.
Oh yes, shattered records. Well, he shattered a record for sure in the platform. That record has been set, was set in 2015, and then he broke that one. I think the record before was 330 points, and this man went on to get 400 plus. So he definitely completely shattered that record. And then I also think that he broke his teammate's record in the 3 meter, I
Yeah, that was
believe.
Gael Jimenez.
And he broke.
And they're both, I believe, on the Mexican national team
Mhm.
as well for the Olympics. So these are guys that we'll be potentially seeing in Paris this summer. That's how good they are. That's how good the level of competition was in FAR. So congratulations to our award winners. Did you have a list by chance of our swim? Because I know that came out this week. Swimmer of the year, diver of the year, coach
Yes,
of the year.
California Baptist Sophia Maximova, she won WAC Swimmer of the Year. And Northern Arizona's McKenna Stocker, she won the Women's Diver of the Year. And then we had co-coaches of the year, Andy Johns from Northern Arizona and New Mexico State's Rick Pratt. Kyra Rabes from Northern Colorado, she won Women's Freshman of the Year. And then Nikki Kelsey from Northern Arizona, she was our Women's Diving Coach of the Year. And then on the men's side, UNLV senior George Ratu was named WAC Swimmer of the Year. If I mispronounce these, please help me. Um, of course, Mario Davale, who we just was talking about, he won WAC Diver and Freshman of the Year. So just to be a freshman, he's picking up big numbers like that. I cannot wait to see what he does for the rest of his time at CBU or just, in swimming and diving and NCAA in general. Um, and then Ben Lors from UNLV was our WAC Swimming Coach of the Year. And then Miranda King, her first year with CBU, she won WAC Diving Coach of the Year. So
Yeah, so congratulations to all those folks. We have the indoor track and field championships are going to be coming up next week. I know there's a couple of qualifiers for that, but also the indoor track and field awards were also coming out this past week. Do you have those at your fingertips?
yes, Southern Utah's Isaiah Labra and Grand Canyon's Nasia Howard were named the track and field athletes of the year. And then Nathan Capel and UT Arlington's Winnie Kepsang
Mhm.
was named the freshman of the year.
As far as
This
Isaiah
is
Labra, he was the one. He had the almost 4 minute mile, broke the indoor championship in the mile. A record that had stood since 1979 was previously held by a silver medalist in the Olympics from UTEP. So it was yeah, one of the top records that we've ever seen happen at the WAC Indoor Track and Field Championships. Coaches of the year go to Eric Houle of Southern Utah and Tom Flood from Grand Canyon on the women's side, as both SUU won on the men's side, Grand Canyon on the women's side. So congratulations to all our award winners in indoor track and field, and best of luck at the championships coming up next week. Baseball, can you believe we're already in conference play?
no, I feel like baseball just started. They had a very short non-conference schedule.
Well, and then you'll still see, especially in the sport of baseball, you'll see quite a few games sprinkled in
Yeah.
that are non-conference, as you see in the sport of softball. But Utah Valley's at Sacramento State to start the year, Seattle U, California Baptist, Utah Tech's at UT Arlington, Abilene Christian at Tarleton State, and Grand Canyon at Stephen F. Austin. And those are three-game series. They play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And here we go. And that'll be a sprint until the end of May when we're in Mesa, Arizona.
Conference starts next week. We're still in the middle of non-conference. We have some big time matchups this week as Grand Canyon takes on San Diego State today. San Diego State is receiving votes in our softball coaches poll. And then with some other things happening, let's see. SFA goes against Louisiana on Saturday. That should be a good game. Louisiana is also receiving votes. And then what's really, really big is Tarleton State has a doubleheader against number 2 Oklahoma next Tuesday and Wednesday. So that should be really, really big. And they're at Oklahoma. So I know that's really exciting. It's always fun when you can go against, top 25 ranked teams. And they're also in Oklahoma, probably really big softball city. They probably
It
will,
is, yeah.
yeah, and show up big. So that should be pretty fun for Tarleton though. And Tarleton has been doing pretty, pretty well. So they might give them a run for their money.
Utah Valley at BYU on Monday. Arizona State will be hosting Grand Canyon. So those are the inner city matchups, if you will. Provo and Orem right next to each other. Arizona State, of course, in Phoenix with Grand Canyon. So pretty close trips to get some big games right before the conference play begins when we're in WAC Vegas.
Everything loves to fall at the same time.
Speaking of WAC Vegas, Todd Phillips is going to be there in Utah Valley. Kendra Sheehan has an interesting conversation with him coming up next on the WAC podcast.
WAC Vegas is back. The best fans, championship basketball, all in exciting Las Vegas. Join us March 13th through the 16th at the Orleans Arena for the 2024 Hercules Tires WAC Basketball Tournament. Don't miss the crowning of a men's and women's champion. For more information, go to wacsports.com/WACVegas.
We now welcome in Utah Valley men's basketball head coach Todd Phillips. Coach, it's great to have you on the show as the Wolverines have turned it to another gear, winning 5 of their last 6 and have clinched a spot in WAC Vegas.
Yeah, we're super excited to get going and get down to Vegas. One more week and it's here.
Coach, this was a new team. You're taking over as the head coach this year, so a lot of moving pieces throughout the season. What's been clicking at the end that's allowed this team to be able to go on a win streak of 5 games and then also clinch a spot in WAC Vegas?
I think there's a lot that goes into it. It's obviously a really young team and brand new guys. And so, I think there's been ups and downs for our team all year long. And then to get on a run this late in the year has been really good for us. I think there's a little bit of comfortability. Guys are getting into their roles and their spots. I mean, Ethan Potter, who hadn't played a whole lot early in the year, all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, is playing great for us. And so guys playing around him and figuring out everybody's role. It seems like it's taken a little bit longer this year, but with basically 15 new guys, it's kind of what happens.
You mentioned Ethan Potter had 17 points in your win over Stephen F. Austin, led the team in scoring. What is it about the end of the year that's allowed these guys to be able to feel so comfortable in the role that you have a breakout game from any given player on a given night?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have an answer for that. It's different guys have been stepping up for us each night, but I think getting into your role, I think as you see in the league, the teams that have had guys together for multiple years, there's such a huge advantage to that. Whether they were a redshirt guy, a role player, or whatever, guys have been together. They just kind of click a little faster than the teams that are kind of put together late.
Coming down this final stretch, you have 2 more games on the road this year. What are some things that you're trying to clean up in practice as you get set for Vegas next week?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. You got to stay healthy, right? And so it's like as coaches, we want to do more and more. And it's like, okay, we got to trim practice down. We can't go so long. Their body's got to be right. And, and kind of the energy that goes into that practice and the energy that goes into the games. I think people a lot of times on the outside fail to realize this is a grind for these kids. And I know it's exciting. It's a WAC tournament time, but their bodies are beat up, their minds are beat up. And so trying to keep them fresh, I think, is so important.
Defensively, this team has really come on strong. How do you like the way that your guys are playing on that end of the floor and the improvement that you guys have made over the course of the season in that area?
Yeah, no, I really like that. We've grown a lot, in what we're doing. And I think again, it comes back to guys being comfortable and understanding their role and what guys do. It's like the big fellas inside patrolling the paint, and so we need to be able to help the helper on that and be able to get out to shooters. And so we've worked really hard this year and to get better, and hopefully we're playing our best basketball at the end of the year.
Caleb Stone Carrawell leads your team in scoring 11.7 points per contest. What separates him from the rest of the group in terms of being able to get to the basket and score?
Yeah, I think his ability to create his own shot. He kind of has an old school game a little bit. He can flip his hips on you in the post. He can get to his middle game jump shot. Just a really smooth game that Caleb has, and he's helped us so much this year and been a solid piece for us.
Drake Allen, another newcomer to the squad, transferring in from Southern Utah. He's second in the team in scoring 11.3 points a contest. Have you watched him grow into a new role this year and be able to kind of take over this team and be a leader on the floor?
Yeah, I think it's been a big challenge for him, coming in kind of as the guy coming back that people in the league know who he is. And also last year at SUU, though, again, it was an old team. Those guys have been together 2 or 3 years. And Drake was kind of a newcomer. Now he comes here and we got a bunch of new guys. I mean, we played 3 freshmen. And so he kind of had to take on a bigger leadership role, a father figure a little bit for these young guys as we go through the league, and tremendous of what he's done for us.
And now we hadn't talked in a long time. And so, first year as head coach, taking over for Mark Madsen. Of course, you're on the staff, so you're familiar with the program. But, coming into the final week of the regular season, what's it been like for you, the highs and lows of stepping into the head coaching role and taking over this program?
Yeah, I think the highs and the lows are much higher and much lower as the head coach. I think you internalize everything. Sometimes you got to take a step back. I take a step back, and it's like this one loss or this one mistake is not the world's not ending. And so for me, I think this first year is kind of realizing that and going through those times. It's like, hey, when you're struggling, how do you get out of that? When you're playing well, how do you maintain what you're doing? And as a coach, I say, like, we try to do too much sometimes. My staff gets on me a little bit. It's like, hey, coach, back it off a little bit. And then when I think about it, they're right. They're right. And so you got to shorten things up and keep things concise and keep things fresh for the guys.
Coach Madsen over at California now, have you guys gotten to talk at all throughout the season? Maybe offer a little bit of advice as you go into WAC Vegas for the first time as head coach?
You bet. No, I talk to him almost weekly. We both, we're kind of both up and down a little bit and things are going on. And so it's been really good to have a sounding board there to talk about and to see, some things are different. A lot of things are the same, as far as changing leagues and all that stuff. And so, he tells me about what's going on with him, and I ask him questions about us. And so he's been a great mentor for me.
What's this team's mindset as you guys head into this tournament? I mean, there's so much parity in the league. It really feels like anyone could win it on a given night. What's the mindset? How do you go into this knowing that it's a long tournament and there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows? You got to just kind of stay even keel.
Yeah, no, I think it's excitement by our guys that they're ready to go. It's like you said, it's like you're in 3rd place and then you're in 6th place. You're in 6th place and all of a sudden you're in 3rd place. And so there's a lot of movement and a lot of parity in the league. And so I think there's a lot of teams that feel like, hey, we have a chance on any given night, especially on a neutral court. And so, our guys are excited. It will be interesting what happens this last week. It's going to shake out to see who plays who in the end of the day. And it's matchups, I think, in the WAC tournament are so key, who you play sometimes and lets you play your style of play. And so we're excited to see what happens.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. Wish you good luck on Thursday to take on Tarleton State, a 7 p.m. Central Time tip on ESPN+, and we'll see you in WAC Vegas.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the WAC podcast. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And check out our website at wacsports.com.